So some people said after I'd posted a video showing that I had achieved an absolutely perfect FICO score of 850 out of 850, that they wanted me to explain to them, well, how is it possible that you can even do that? Like me personally, I thought I would never get above 843. I thought maybe that was the ceiling because I assumed that I would have to continue to build my credit availability to around $50,000 before I'd have excellent in the $50,000 category, which allows you to have excellent credit availability. Turned out that the other categories were more than enough to ensure that I'd be able to get like an absolutely perfect score. So I figured I'd just make a really quick video and explain to people how they can build their credit, because it's actually something that I hear regularly. As you know, if you try to purchase a car, especially if you try to purchase a luxury car, or if you try to purchase a house, as you know, your credit is basically the gatekeeper as to whether or not you're going to be able to get in. And that's not the only gatekeeper. Furthermore, you're going to have to show tax returns. You're going to have to show them that you've had stable employment. You're going to have to show them that you have enough cash on hand. If you want to purchase a house, here in New York and a lot of other places, they usually are looking for 10% down. During the quarantine of 2020, I don't know what year you're going to be watching this video because it's going to be sitting on my internet for a long time. But during 2020, Wells Fargo demanded that, you have at least 10% in order to buy a house. When I bought my second house, I put down 10%. However, JP Morgan Chase said, no, you know what? We want more than that. We want 20%. And on top of that, you have to have a 700 FICO score. JP Morgan touched off almost an untrustworthy environment where the banks weren't trusting people anymore because they were afraid that people were going to start taking out debt that they couldn't afford to pay back due to the pandemic. And they also were afraid that people had a lot of credit outlying, and that if they lost their job, what they were going to do was spend every dime that they could on credit and then default on it later. So basically the bank said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to reduce your credit availability. So that means that if you had a $5,000 credit card, they might cut it in half and say, yeah, it's $2,500. So we'll let you spend $2,500 until later on where you could prove to us that you can be trusted with $5,000. So we've had a number of situations. In fact, by the banks saying, okay, we're going to cut your credit availability, that actually causes some people's credit scores to decline. And it became a situation where you really didn't know from one day to another whether or not your credit score would decline or possibly go up, but you just didn't know. Now that the pandemic is over, I'm making this video in August instead of like back in February. Now that the pandemic is ending, it's not over, but now that it's ending, the banks are seeming to release their stranglehold on credit a little bit. And, companies like Goldman Sachs with Apple Card, they're saying, okay, listen, if you got denied before, maybe if you apply again, maybe we'll let you get the card now. So, the credit system has been fluctuating. I had always assumed that because of the number of people who owe student loans, I always assumed that the credit system was going to end up being broken. And that was because a lot of people couldn't afford to buy anything, specifically Generation Z and Generation Alpha, who end up getting credit cards later on. I really didn't think that they were going to be able to get and maintain credit or be able to really buy into like cars and houses, because overall car loans have decreased, home loans have decreased. But because the media is basically being controlled by the White House under Donald Trump right now, they aren't telling you the truth about mortgage loan applications. They're not telling you the full truth about the economy. I absolutely believe we're in a state of stagflation. And that is referenced by reduced GDP, high unemployment, high underemployment, and poorly targeted government programs. So here's the thing. Wells Fargo's system, which is coming from Experian, as you know, there's 3 credit bureaus that we use, Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. They say that there are some key factors that are used to determine a FICO score. So here are some of those key scores, ingredients. It starts out by saying FICO scores take into consideration 5 main categories. So first of all, new credit. That's basically, okay, how many new accounts have you opened, basically. So they're saying that that's a 10% hit to your score, or it's 10% gain. How many new accounts you've opened, how long it has been since you opened a new account. They don't like to see you taking out lots and lots of credit in a short period of time. You may notice that there's these people who call them credit card gurus on YouTube. They call themselves credit card gurus. Like I watched this one channel, Credit Shifu, and then there's this guy, Stephen Graham. One thing you need to understand about these gurus, some of these guys, especially the newer ones and the smaller channels, some of these guys have seen the other credit gurus and they say, hey, I can make money on YouTube doing this, taking out credit cards. So what they do is they start taking out credit cards and they videotape and vlog it. The issue is that somebody like Stephen Graham, he already had money going into YouTube. This is not somebody who, didn't have anything going in. He actually had money before he got in, and he used YouTube in order to boost what he had. But there are these newer people who they come on YouTube just so that they can take out credit cards and then talk about them. Like most of these guys, they may not have even really taken out the card, but they actually just sit there and talk about it, and that's how they build their YouTube. I'm not hating on them. I'm just saying that you have to recognize this for what it is. People know that you want to build your credit, so what they do is they make videos about how they believe that you can build your credit. Mind you, the final say is left to the bank and the underwriting process. You can have whatever credit score you have, but if the underwriters who are underwriting a mortgage application say, you know what, you haven't had the job history and you don't have the cash, well, your credit score could be a perfect score. It doesn't matter. You're not buying anything, or you're not buying a house at least. It's easier to buy a car than a house. You can buy a car because let's say you screw up and you lose a job, or let's say you don't have enough money to keep up the car. They can always come and take that car back from you. A house is much more difficult to take from you through the process of foreclosure. It takes longer and it's much more difficult. Once you have land and you have access to what land gives you, like a deed and a title, it's very difficult to take any of that away from you. A car is easy to take away from you. If you miss a couple payments on that, they will come and pick that bad boy up. So what else is here? They say 10% is the type of credit you use. Well, what do they have to say about that? Type of credit. Well, they say, okay, this is a 10% hit. They say, what kind of credit account do you have? Do you have experience with revolving credit cards, installment loans, or has your credit experience been limited to only one type? If you only use credit cards, it can only build your credit to a certain point. That's because credit cards usually don't have extremely high credit availabilities. A credit card may only give you $10,000 worth of credit. Buying a car loan, however, gives you a different type of credit because a car loan is usually worth a lot more. $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 cars. If you buy a $50,000 car and you pay it off religiously, like let's say you bought a Scat Pack or a Tesla or something, and you have a $50,000 loan and you make every single payment on time, that helps build your credit considerably because they're like, okay, he had a $50,000 loan, so we can trust him with $50,000. Great. If you have a home loan and you somehow manage to pay down a home loan, that is really good on your credit report because you've proved that, okay, you took out a $300,000 loan and you proved that you could pay it back. Okay, that's really good, so we're going to boost up your credit score by X number of points. So just having one type of credit isn't going to get you the high score. Having different types of credit over a long period of time, car loans, credit cards, student loans paid off. That is going to help boost your credit a lot. But again, got to make every payment on time. If you make every payment on time, you never settle out of any accounts, you never default on any accounts, you can guarantee that you're going to build your score fast. But again, you have to pay those bills on time. Length of credit history. Now, this takes a while because most of us start building our credit when we're about 18. It says approximately 15% is based on your length of credit. So obviously that's exactly what it sounds like. Well, how long have your credit accounts been on the books? How long have they been established? How long have you had these credit accounts, these specific accounts? Like if you get a car, you know a car loan is going to take you 6 or 7 years to pay off, right? So if you're able to pay it off in 6 or 7 years, make every single payment, never default, you're doing great. How long has it been since you used certain accounts? I have credit cards that I haven't touched. Like I have an American Express Blue card. I don't use it because the limit is $500 and it doesn't really give me anything. Like my Capital One Venture card gives me points. I can upgrade to business class every time I fly. That's one of the reasons why a lot of people are getting into credit cards, because once they take a look at that economy class back there, and people are sitting there squeezed together catching coronavirus, nobody wants to deal with that shit. So what they do is they're like, okay, I'm going to get a credit card that has like a $10,000 limit or a $5,000 limit. And every time I fly, I'm going to fly business class. And then I'll pay it back later. So credit cards come really in handy when you want to make a large purchase or you want to spend a lot of money without carrying cash around. But the length of your credit history is extremely important, because if you start building your credit about the time you turn 18, when you're able to sign contracts, that is a great place to start. But most people end up damaging their credit because they take out smartphone loans, they take out loans on things that they just can't afford. They're buying sneakers, Jordan sneakers. They're buying stupid Gucci bags and all this stupid bullshit, like these dumbass Gucci belts and all that silly ass shit, trying to show off and be flashy. And then they're doing it on a credit card and they can't afford it. And what happens is the bills start coming and they start ignoring the phone calls from the debt collectors. And eventually that ends up destroying their credit. When I was a kid, or when I was younger, I was in my teens, a lot of people ruined their credit with Sprint. They were getting these cell phones. They had Nextel. I had one of my friends, his credit was shot because he had all these bills coming from Nextel, because this idiot was he was taking out phones on credit. He was taking out plans for these phones. He'd get one for his girlfriend, and they'd run up these bills. I'd never seen no $1,500 cell phone bill. That's just crazy. But some people, they just felt, oh yeah, well, it's for granted. I can do whatever I want. What they didn't realize was in the future, they wouldn't be able to buy anything like a house or a car, or at least buy it at a decent interest rate, because they screwed up their credit. So yeah, they're going to look over your entire credit history. If you had bankruptcies, yeah, that may stay on your records for like 7 years. You don't want to go bank. You don't want to ever file bankruptcy. Somebody should tell President Trump that, because he seems to be really good at filing bankruptcy and then pretending to be a businessman. So anyway, what else? Payment history. Well, that's obvious. I keep saying the same thing. You got to pay all these things on time. Credit cards, retail accounts. Retail accounts is like if you have a card from Macy's or Sears or Home Depot or something. Every single business wants to give you a credit card, because as you're paying that interest, they're making more money off of you. So retail accounts are dangerous if you don't pay them on time and you don't use them wisely. If I go to Home Depot, the only thing I'm buying from Home Depot with a Home Depot credit card is Home Depot stuff. I will not take a Home Depot card and buy from another business unless there's some type of 0% interest for a certain amount of time. I refuse to pay interest. I don't keep revolving debts on my credit cards. If I take out if I buy something, like let's say I buy a television and they say, okay, 0% interest for 12 months or 0% interest for 24 months, I am going to pay it off within that time period, and I'm not going to pay interest. That is one of the reasons why I don't even wait till the end of the month to pay off my credit card bills, because I absolutely refuse to pay anybody interest. You have to learn how to live interest free. And in order to do that, you have to keep up a perfect payment history, and you have to make sure that anything that you take out long-term installments for, you have to make sure you pay it off before the due date comes. Public record and collections. This is where a lot of people get screwed. If you have bankruptcies, they're looking and they can see it. Foreclosures. If you lose a home loan, yeah, chances are it's going to screw up your credit for a while. Lawsuits also hurt you because they put judgments on your name, and then the banks see, oh, wait a minute, you owe somebody else a lot of money, so we can't trust you because you're taking out credit because you owe somebody else a lot of money. That might be dangerous. You might default. Wage attachments, liens, and judgments. If you have a lien on your house, that means that there's a debt that you didn't pay, and somebody has a lien on your house, which means that if you wanted to sell your house, you're not selling your house until you pay them first. Judgments, child support. If you got a baby mama, or you made real big mistakes and you have 2 or 3 baby mamas out there, and you got 3 or 4 kids by multiple women who are stupid enough to sleep with you, well, guess what? That child support is going to put a serious stain on your credit record. For example, if the government is handing out these Trump welfare checks and you owe child support, you're not getting a Trump welfare check. It's going to go straight to your baby mama. So you don't want to have child support or liens or anything on your record. You just don't want it. Public records. That's the same thing. Bankruptcies, foreclosures, liens, so forth and so on. You don't want to have any of that on your name. If you ever get something like that, like a judgment, you have to pay it as quickly as possible. If you have a lien on something like your property, you got to pay it as quickly as possible because it will screw up your credit. The number of accounts that show no late payments is also really important. You have to pay everything on time. If you pay everything on time, you can be sure that your credit will go up considerably. Okay, current loan and current debt. All right, if you have student loans can hurt you significantly because they increase your loan to debt ratio. The banks want to see that you're not taking out much credit because they want to see that you don't need much credit. But if you have student loans and you don't have a really good job, that's a problem. So what do they call that? The amount you owe. Approximately 30% of FICO score. Now that's 30%. So that's a huge amount of your score. 30% is based on information that evaluates your indebtedness. How indebted are you? What kind of loans are these? If you have a home loan, they already know that this is going to take you 30 years to pay off. If you can show them that you're able to pay that home loan down and simultaneously own a car and simultaneously pay other loans, that will help boost your credit, especially when they know that you make a certain amount of money that's able to support you. But ultimately, they want to make sure that you have as few debts as possible and that you're able to make those payments on time. It says the number of accounts where you carry a balance. I do not carry revolving balances. If I use my credit card, you can bet that within 5 days, I'm paying that off. I am not waiting till the end of the month, ever. Whatever I buy, I must have had the cash for it, but I'm using the credit card in order to gain the points, the cash back, or the frequent flyer miles, or whatever it is. I'm not waiting till the end of the month. People who wait till the end of the month end up not paying the full bill. And that's just a psychology fact. The credit card companies hire psychologists. They know what colors to make a credit card to make you want it. They know what benefits to offer to make you want that card. They know how to get into your mind, and they know how to trick you. They know how to capture as much of your money as possible. So you have to understand, these people hire psychologists, and they use the psychologists to learn how to get as much of your money as possible. Certain businesses use certain colors. Target uses red, Walmart uses blue. They cause feelings in people. Sometimes there's stores I don't even want to shop in because I don't like the feelings I get from the paint job on the wall. And I don't even want to be there. Target is a store that I don't go to. I don't like the red paint job. I go to Walmart. I like blue. I like orange. Those colors make me feel better. Psychologists are working against you. Apple uses white and black. They use a lot of these companies. They use very bold colors to market their products because bold colors, the human brain treats bold colors a certain way. There are also other colors that are authentic to specific restaurants, like Subway. Subway uses green and yellow. Capital One uses blue, and they use a small amount of red. When we see these colors, subconsciously, we associate them with certain feelings. So the bottom line is, psychologists are working with banks against you, and you have to understand that. They understand exactly how to snatch as much money out of your pockets as they can. Credit utilization is an issue. If you have $10,000 of credit, but you're using half of it, that's bad. You need to be using less than $1,000, or you need to be using less than $500. The less of your credit that you're using at any given time, the better. When you start using more and more credit, the banks take that as a sign that there's a financial problem brewing. The fewer dollars you have to spend on credit, the better. And that's the bottom line. So once again, that is the ingredients to having a healthy FICO score. You may have heard Dave Ramsey tell you to avoid credit. Well, if you listen to him, and keep in mind, Dave Ramsey has millions of dollars in cash, and he has filed bankruptcy before. I personally have never filed bankruptcy. But Dave Ramsey is married. He has a stable marriage. He has cash money. He has a YouTube. If you listen to people like him and Susie Orman and Chris Hogan, you may learn a couple of things, but ultimately their creditless utopia that they're talking about, that's never going to exist. You need a credit card and you need good credit in some cases just to apply for certain jobs. Certain jobs demand that you have credit. You need credit just to be able to rent a car. Most car rentals, I had a friend I took to a Hertz. We went to the Hertz rental. This is a true story. And in fact, I may have made a video of it. But anyway, she wanted to rent a car, and they disallowed her to rent a car because she either didn't have a credit card or she didn't want to use her credit card to rent the car. She tried to use me to use my credit card, and I flat out told her, nope, I'm not doing it. Because the problem is, I don't want to be liable for somebody else's credit expenditure. Furthermore, you should never co-sign for anything. If you let somebody else use your credit, you're letting them co-sign onto your credit. Even if they aren't physically signing with their hand like in a pen, never co-sign with anybody. If you're a parent and you've got kids who are about to take out student loans, I'm warning you, do not co-sign for the student loans. You're better off paying cash if you can, but do not co-sign for their student loans. Have them get a FAFSA from the government. Have the government do it. If you co-sign on their student loans and they default on those student loans, you're liable, your credit gets dragged down. And if you're the breadwinner and you let somebody else drag your credit down, well, that ain't good. Because now your credit is low and you can't be the breadwinner as much. Because now, if let's say something happens, if your boiler breaks in your basement, now if you don't have the cash, you can't easily get the credit if they don't extend you the credit. Do not co-sign for any loans with anybody. Now, with my business, with my Uber service where we have cars, typically I have people paying me if I have to do a signing. Like sometimes you may see me buying a car, like you may catch me in the public and I'm buying a car that I have no intentions of talking about on YouTube and I intend just to use it for the service. If I have to co-sign, all of that's on me and I'm liable for all that. It's better not to use your personal credit for that. It's better to open up a business line of credit. That's why you hear people talk about LLCs and you hear people talking about C Corps. If you open up a business and you open up a credit line for that business, then that will save your personal credit from being used to co-sign on things. So a while back, I used to use my credit to purchase car loans that other people were going to be driving the cars. But at this point, I refuse to do that anymore. I only use business credit. And as for this friend I'm talking about, I already knew that she jacked up her credit because she makes stupid purchases and she does things that I don't agree with. Bottom line is, do not co-sign for anybody, especially a wife, especially a girlfriend. You see on Judge Judy all the time, there's people in court divorcing, there's people in court suing each other. It's like, I used my credit card to buy my boyfriend this Nissan Altima, and I cheated on him, and he caught me cheating on him, because the Nissan Altima is the official car of the cheating girlfriend. Well, he might refuse to pay you money, and now you got to take him to court, but because of the fact that it's in your name, you're more liable than he is. And the judge might not see it your way. The judge might say, he doesn't owe you because you were infidelity on him, or you were an infidel, you cheated on him. So you just don't know. Don't co-sign for anything. I don't know how much clearer I can make that. Do not co-sign for anything, ever. Just don't do it. Don't co-sign for anything. And if you get married, you should keep your own credit personal. If you want to have a joint bank account, okay, that's cool. But always remember, she can go in there, take that money out without your knowledge, without your permission. If you're going to build it together, that sounds great. But I ain't co-signing for nothing for nobody. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. And the other thing is, and I guess one of the problems about me is I'm sharing my credit score. I'm sharing my information. There are some people who might look at that and say, hey, you know what? You've got perfect credit. Your credit is freaking ridiculous. Your credit is a goddamn perfect 850. And they want me to co-sign for them. I'm not doing it. Because I'll tell them, if I co-sign, it's going to drag my credit down. I might lose 8 points. I might lose 10 points. I'm not doing it. I feel really good about having an 850 credit score because I didn't always have this. When I was in college and came out of college, I had a 500. I had a 500 as a low score. I had a 530 as a middle score. When I bought my first car, I had a goddamn 27% interest on my first car. When I bought a second car, I dropped that down to 7% interest. And when I bought my recent cars, I was down to 3% or better. It's like having a good credit score is important to me, and it's something that I'm really proud of. Also, I have student loan payoff letters where I paid off my student loans. When I really think about it, it's like those are the things that I'm really, really proud of in my financial journey, I guess you could call it. If you pay off your student loans, if you achieve good credit, you need to reinforce it to your brain. You need to reinforce yourself. Print those scores out. Like this page that you're looking at, I'm going to print this out. I'm going to put this on my wall so I can look at it every day. I'm going to put it in the bathroom. I'm going to frame it I'm going to get a cheap album frame, and I'm going to print this out, and I'm going to frame it, put it on my wall. And this is something I'm really proud of. My student loan payoffs, I paid off my student loans 10 years early. The government thought that they were going to get me on a 6.8% interest loan for consolidation. They thought they were going to get me. I paid that shit off 10 years early by getting a second job and applying 100% of the money to this. And I paid it off 10 years early. Those are the things that I'm really proud of. So I am going to print this out, frame it, put it on my wall, in my bathroom, in my bedroom. So every single day I can wake up and look at the fact that I got a goddamn perfect score. And you think anybody who says that the system is racist and the credit scoring system is racist, I honestly can't agree with them because, listen, if I could be a big black guy with a loud mouth and I can achieve it, I think anybody can achieve it.